Okay, in the paddle class then, obviously, I know this is a lot to get to the final stage of actually seeing it happen, but it kind of all the parts have to be in place before we can really see it. So in the paddle class now, we are going to work on making it so that if the paddle is told to perform, if it's modified by a brick, if it comes in contact with a brick, um, that is a modifier, it will do something. So we're going to use this modify method in the modifier or in the paddle class. So we're going to say like what's going to happen is this main class is going to monitor all these collisions here, and if one of the bricks comes in contact with the paddle, then this class will send that brick's modifying information over to the paddle in this container. So say it was like one of those blue large paddle bricks, and the paddle should be getting bigger. So we need to check, because it could be any kind of modifier. Maybe it was like a laser modifier. Maybe it was a triple ball modifier. Maybe it was whatever. So this needs to say if M, and this is just a special word that you just have to learn, is an instance of, is a type of, is like a grandchild of, and is a specific, like if it is a large paddle, if it is one of these objects. So if it's an instance of large paddle, meaning that if it has this identity, that it was created in that way, then we want to do we're going to create a method just to keep this all super clear what's going on, or I like doing it this way anyway. So we're going to have a method called large paddle. And this is going to do all of the different things that we need to do for, if the paddle is supposed to get large. All right. So we need to have a few fields to change attributes to the paddle now, and to monitor whether or not the paddle should be doing its changes and how big it should be getting and how long it should stay that big, etc. Okay, so up here in the paddle class, we're going to add modifier fields. In these fields, we need to have a Boolean that remembers whether large paddle is active. Large paddle active. And we're going to have some integers that are just like counter variables for large paddle count and large target large paddle count. So this is going to be like how many frames has the paddle been made wider, and this is going to be how many frames we want it to stay wide. So maybe this will be like 600, and this will be like, it'll tick up from like 0 towards 600, and when this gets above this, we'll reset it to the original size. So in large paddle, we're going to say if it hasn't already been modified, meaning that because we don't want it to get like infinitely wide if it hits like 1,000 of these modifier bricks, right? Because your paddle will be the entire width of the screen. So only in the instance where it's not already large. So if not large paddle active, then we want to multiply the paddle width times 2. So times equals 2. And we want to set large paddle active to true. So this means if it's not already large, let's make it large and say that it's been modified. Okay, now in the update method, we also have to make some changes so that our paddle count, so that we can pay attention to how long it's been active. So if it is active, if large paddle active, then we want to large paddle count plus plus, which means every time this method is called, So 60 times a second. We just want to keep track of the frames. That's how many frames the large paddle has been. The paddle has been large. And then once the count, large paddle count, gets above target large paddle count. So once it's been large for as long as we want it to be large, then we want to reset. So large paddle active equals false. Large paddle count equals 0. So we reset that, and we're going to take the paddle width back down to equal divided equals 2. So take this back down to its original value. Now we also need to give these variables. I forgot about this in the constructor. So modifiers. So large paddle count at the beginning should equal 0. Large paddle active at the beginning should be false because we've not modified the paddle. And the target large paddle count, we're going to say 600 frames is how long we want it to stay large before it flips back to not being large. Alright, and I think that's enough for this video. That's how we add the large paddle modifier to the paddle class. Soon it's going to actually do something.